Before we get into today's episode, I do want to enter a huge caution. If you're going to put a crankshaft into a lathe, be extremely careful. This can be very dangerous. There are pieces sticking out on this particular crankshaft that can catch a piece of clothing, catch your hair, catch a rag, catch things you're working with. Make sure you don't have anything wrapped around your hands or wrists if you're going to get in near this thing, because you can severely, you can get really hurt or even killed working on this. So I can't emphasize that enough. Um, there's things we're going to do today that I've had a lot of experience. I'm going to enter cautions as we go along. But today's episode really isn't about all of this, so let's get into it. Oh, hey, welcome back, Shop Rats. Today we've got a crankshaft chucked up in our lathe, and we're going to talk about it because it is a Talk About It Tuesday. I'm Mike.
This is My Car's Shop.
It's actually the 3rd of July, and it's a long weekend, and I'm tired. We had car show Friday. We worked in the shop yesterday. We've had a bunch of family stuff going. Had to fix a lawnmower this morning. Well, life is happening. And I was just kind of sitting here in the chair in the shop thinking about what I might want to do today for a Talk About It Tuesday episode. And I got looking down on the floor and I saw the crankshaft for the Golden Mullet for the 413 426 project, and it's looking rather dirty. And we had just done an episode on polishing camshafts. Could we do it? And I got to asking myself the question, could we actually chuck a chuck?
Chuck? A chuck? A chuck? A chuck? A woodchuck? Chuck? If a woodchuck could chuck crankshafts?
I wondered if we could actually chuck a crankshaft up in this lathe and make it spin. Well, obviously you've sawn and you've seen that we can. Now, let me make it clear. I have no intention of machining a crankshaft, but this thing is really dirty, and I thought, well, if I can polish a cam, do some cleanup, is it possible that we could do a little cleanup of a crankshaft? Now, I don't have all the emery papers and things that I need right now. Was using small. I could do journals, but I don't have stuff to do the polishing on these bigger pieces. So then my thought was, well, at least I could get this cleaned up. It's been kicking around since we tore the engine apart, and I'd like to get it cleaned up and protected because I've been kind of neglectful with it, is what I'm trying to say. None of that really is the point on today's episode. It's more of a talk about it, but I thought while I was talking, we would do some things. So I'm just going to, spray some super clean around here, and maybe we'll... So we're going to let that soak in there a little bit, and then we'll clean it up a little bit. But I was thinking about, creative ways that we can use the tools and equipment that we have and save some money and things like that. And of course, this is one way that I hadn't thought of when I got the lathe. Another thing that we can do to help save a few bucks is just simply do things like this. We can polish this probably if I have the right emery papers, which I'm going to get. But it's interesting to me what you can do when you put your creative mind to it, when you have some just basic tools and equipment. Now, I know that not everybody has a lathe. I get that. But if you've seen the episode, what's behind this and how little we paid for it, then you realize that, these things can be had if you have a little floor space in your house or your shop or your basement. And you too can pick up some equipment that will enable you to do some things that you hadn't thought of doing before. It really was. I should have put a tray under that. I need to get a tray to put under there. We'll do that next time. It really was not in my thought processes at all that we could do things like this with a crankshaft and a camshaft and stuff like that. And so it was just really, what's the word I'm looking for? Eye-opening, I guess, is the word, when um, I realized that, hey, I could crank up a crank, or I can spin up a cam, or things like that to do polishing and cleaning and so forth. So, think about the things that you have in your shop, in your garage, and what are ways that you maybe could use those things that you hadn't thought of before. This is a new acquisition here around the shop, obviously. If you've been around a while, the last time we needed to turn something, we used the old DeWalt hand lathe, in other words, my cordless drill, and we turned out a tool for removing a windshield seal on the 86 pickup paint job that we're doing. But I'm thinking that, with some creative thinking and some creative outside the box um, brainstorming, there are probably things that you guys are doing or can be doing that you hadn't thought of that could save you a whale of money and have some fun at the same time. I'm going to polish this up, not polish, clean this up a little bit more, and then we'll come back and talk some more. Just finding things that need to be done here on this crank, and discovered that the rear seal area is really bad, so we'll go ahead and clean that up. That's just a soft bristle brush. It's not a wire brush or anything. And my main objective here is I want to store this crank for a while because it's going to be a while. And I'm finding ways to just make my life a whole lot easier to clean things up. There we go. We got all that dirt out of there now. That was going to hold moisture and possibly cause it to rust. I can't dig on this like I could with the camshaft without having some long emery paper, because the counterweights will definitely give me some fits. And even getting in here with the brush down in these journals. Can cause issues if I'm not careful. But it makes so much shorter work out of everything if I don't have to sit there and try to flop this around on a bench and deal with it. We got all kinds of dirt down in here we can get cleaned out. I just think it's pretty cool. Just as another feature of owning this that I had not considered before. One of the things that you do when you're doing engines, if you want to polish your cranks yourself, is you take normally a piece of emery paper and you wrap it around your journal. This one's too short. Let me grab a longer one. Okay, this is good. This is 600. And you wrap it around the journal completely. And then you take a strap or a rope or something, and in this case I'm using a strap. And you wrap it around there, and don't turn the lathe on. And then you just do this. And that way you can polish up your crank nicely. Well, that scared the bejeebers out of me. Obviously, I'm not turning the lathe. That would be suicide. But that's the old-fashioned way of doing it. And I remember seeing Tom Hoover do a crankshaft where he brought that thing up to a mirror just by polishing it like that. Yeah, that's not bad. If I had my proper emery papers and so forth, it would be even better. I'm not saying I'm not going to take this crank up to a machine shop because I probably will. But again, it's giving me a real good idea of the condition of this thing just by doing stuff like this. Now, my whole point today is not to sit here and watch, have you watch me um, try to polish a crank, but rather it's to get you thinking about ways you can use things that you have that will make your life easier. I've polished many a crank on a workbench, and it's a pain in the neck when it's not fixtured in like this, trying to do that stuff. Here in the lathe, I can do the mains with the lathe spinning, and I can do the journals just the way I showed you. I was just using sandpaper, but I can either try the long stuff, which I don't think is going to work. The more I think about it, but wrap it around there, take that strap, and go after it, and get a good feel for what a crankshaft like this, what condition it's in, is what I'm trying to say. So think about the stuff you have. Throw your ideas down there. What creative things have you learned that you can do with tools and equipment that you have? Things that you can, well, that you hadn't thought of before, and things that will make your life easier. Share those with each other so we can all learn from each other. On a side note, I also, for the guy that I bought the lathe from, my buddy Jim, he gave me this little handy dandy thing, which has got 2 cutting wheels and a crank and some gears. And he was going to make a bead roller out of it. Well, I have a bead roller. And he said, well, do you want it? You have a bead roller? I said, yeah, I do, because I can make a metal shear with this. And so that's a little project we're going to do coming ahead at some point. I'll have to make some new cutters for it and get it cleaned up and get it functioning and get a mount that'll fit it into our universal tool mounting system. And we'll have a neat little repurpose. What that thing originally was a tile cutter for cutting field tile, I believe. And, it's just something that I can probably repurpose and use here around the shop at some point. Well, I feel like I got a pretty good handle on what the condition of this thing is in now. And like I said, I thought we would do a talk about it at the same time that I'm out here just fiddling around. I really wasn't, intending to make an episode on how to polish a crankshaft in your lathe. But I still thought it was something fun to share with you guys. You got to be careful. These counterweights swinging around. If you have something in here, it would be easy. Like if I was using a rag, it would be easy for that rag to get caught up in there, get caught on one of these sharp edges, and take it in there. So make sure that you don't have loose clothing or your long hair, shirt sleeves, or if you have a towel that you're using, don't get it wrapped up in your hands at all, because it will take it away from you, and it could hurt you, and we don't want to see something like that happen. So safety, safety, safety. So again, the point of today's episode wasn't how to polish a crankshaft, but rather to get us thinking about tools and equipment that we have in creative ways that we can safely,
Did I mention safely?
use those tools and equipment to accomplish things more effectively than we've done in the past. I've polished a ton of cranks in the past. I've always done that method that I showed you, but I did it on a workbench. It was a pain in the neck. This is just so freaking convenient. And I will, when I get my emery papers, I will be able to do these mains safely by not getting in close in here and potentially catching on anything, and not holding the paper too tight and not wrapping it around myself so that it draws me into it, and it'll kill you. I'm going to tell you that right now. It can kill you. So I can't emphasize safety, safety, safety. I already said it, but I'm going to say it again. That'll do it for this one. I appreciate you being here, and don't forget, it's important.
Find creative way to use your tools and rock.